All right, welcome into the Three Wanks FPL podcast. This is our inaugural episode of three losers and complete FPL novices. Well, at least two of those. Trying to give you guys just a little bit of insight into what we're thinking. Uh, we really don't know what we're doing, but we might hit you guys with something crazy. We might hit you with some strategy you've never heard of, and more than anything, we just enjoy chatting about FPL. So, yeah, I am your host, Luke. I'll let the other two Wanks here, Wanks 3 and 1, introduce themselves.
What's up? I'm Wank number three, also referred to as Andrew or Sharpe,
Or Vibes
and
FC.
most often will be Vibes FC. And if you want to hear something you've never heard of, I'm sure that it's going to come out of my mouth because may not have a lot of logic behind it.
Facts.
Showing last season was pretty strong, so there might
Very
be
true.
a method to the madness, but yeah, I've been playing for a couple years, 3 years now, and big Liverpool guy, obviously representing today. One of my favorite
Uh-huh.
kits from the past couple years. So pass it off to our first wank.
Yeah, what's up, guys? I'm Mack. I've been playing for a while, probably most experienced. I got these guys addicted a couple years ago. I've been playing since 2019-20 season, but played on a couple different apps like Sleeper for a couple years before. Had two top 10K finishes and three top 100K finishes, and I'm a big Spurs fan, so real happy rocking the Tottenham merch today, coming off the back of that Europa League win. Real nervous about this upcoming season, but we'll get into that. But hey, it's not a bad problem to have because you should just basically never choose Spurs assets in your team, so it makes it easy.
Yeah, so we've got a resident Spurs fan, a resident Liverpool fan. I just go for whichever team has the coolest players, which right now I am jacked up about this Man United lineup just because like I loved watching so many of these players. When I first came in, I would have said I liked Brighton, but they got rid of all my guys. So I don't know. It's tough. I am very non I don't have any loyalty to any of these teams. But yeah, like Max said, no, go ahead.
Just
I
a
think that says a
disgusting attitude.
lot. I think that says a lot about United fans in total. So it makes sense.
Yeah, that's very fair. To be fair, I have some childhood connections, but we're not I don't need to live on and die on the United Hill. Anyway, like Max said, he is the most experienced FPL player here. He's been playing for a while. He got Sharpe and I into this kind of like we were both kind of on a whim, like, whatever, a couple years ago. We drafted some teams. I think we both had pretty shit seasons. I got obsessed with it. Mac didn't realize the monster that he was creating as someone who just loves data, loves analytics. Didn't even watch really Premier League soccer super often before then. I think Sharpe watched a lot more than I did. I used to watch when I was a kid a ton. Um, anyway, so yeah, Mac got us into it. He's had some pretty stellar finishes, but last year there's a little bit of a grudge match because Sharpe and I outplaced him. So this year we're just going to kind of give you guys some of our thought processes and see who can come out on top and see if we can come up with some interesting strategies.
Yeah, I'm coming off a real bad season. I was pretty disappointed for that. Hoping for some redemption this year. The five transfers got me. Totally new game, but I'm ready to take it back.
Well, I know you were like, honestly, I think that's a good place to start because I know you weren't a big fan of the switch from 2 to 5 transfers. Obviously, there's a lot of rule changes this year as well. Sharpe, I'm not sure if Vibes FC is caught up on any of those. But
He caught up last night. Don't you worry.
but I'm curious to hear what you guys think about some of these new rule changes. I guess first, Mac, you can start with the 2 to 5 transfers, like what you think about that, and then we can kind of go through some of these.
Yeah, I wouldn't say five transfers was inherently a problem. I'd say it was definitely more of a me problem than anything else. I typically like to play a pretty aggressive game. A lot of transfers in and out. When you had a capacity of two, you really had to pay attention to capitalize on those picks. I tried to play a similarly aggressive game last year. Combo that with just picking the wrong template team, and I was just really behind from the get go. I think I wildcarded in game week 4, which generally speaking, I think is okay when there's two transfers because people don't have the ability to just shift their team so rapidly. But when I was burning my transfers from the get go, immediately wildcarded. Some people saved up 5 transfers, and I was just behind from game week 5 on. So lesson this year is just go a little slower. I still think 5 is too many. I think they could have brought it up to like 3 or 4. I think the idea was just to let people who maybe don't pay attention back into the game. I think it takes a certain element of skill away. But, I'm not going to be an old man yelling at clouds. It is what it is. We're going to move forward this year.
Well, I think the ironic part of that is talking about not being as aggressive, maybe not wild carding as early. Now that you can do it on both sides, like you can do everything with both chips on both sides, it's like I could have a whole new team every 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, coupling with the 5 transfers, coupling with being able to bench boost a couple times, and it's like a whole different level that I'm
Well,
actually gonna have to pay attention to more than just wait for my double game weeks and hit those.
no, 100. So that with the AFCON transfers. So I think we all kind of
Yeah.
touched on like I really don't fuck with the AFCON transfer rule. I think that's silly. I don't know why they felt like they needed that. I think that's ridiculous. However, with the 5 transfers, with that, it's like I was kind of looking through my team the first few weeks here. I'm tentatively planning like a wild card 13. And so in that early bit though, I'm like, I could, if I roll the first 5, 6 weeks, like I could basically get a new team in game week
Yeah.
7. And so that, and then you have in 19, you have the AFCON transfers. It's like, so two wild cards, all these transfers rolled, like suddenly it's like I feel like you rolling is kind of the play consistently. And to your point, Mac, like an aggressive strategy doesn't necessarily work out because when you think of the start of the season and you think of all the uncertainty that you might have, it's like you might as well just wait till week 5, week 6, see what's happened, and then make all your changes then. I will say I do really like that they added the chips on both sides of Christmas. I don't know how you guys feel about that. My reason being I get my least favorite part of the season is when you're doing all the chips at the same time because you're waiting for double game weeks and everyone's doing the chips at the exact same time. We have template teams. It's like, okay, if you're going to be using this chip, you have to be using it in the double game week. I don't remember the specifics of it, but Sharpe, I know last year you had some alternative chip strategy that paid off. Like, I love that shit, and that's why Vibes FC can just come out of absolutely nowhere. But anyway, I like that it reduces template teams because I think that's when it just gets the most boring. But yeah,
Yeah, I think last year I got honestly really lucky at the beginning of the season, having Holland in there at the right time, getting rid of him at the right time, and almost never going back to him because you didn't need to. So where Max started out in a hole, I started out ahead. And honestly, some of those chips kind of ended up biting me in the end of it. Some of them worked out okay, but like the assistant manager chip, which let's be honest, I'm really grateful is gone at this point, certainly bit me with the inability to do anything else during that time and having to use a transfer on it. Once I got towards the end of the season, I felt like I was playing a little bit of catch up, probably how Mac felt in the beginning of the season,
yeah,
and I just couldn't stack the transfers the way I wanted to. And so at that time, it was like more difficult. But I kind of did like the simplicity of being able to like know exactly when you really needed to use those, and if you wanted to get crazy with it, it was crazy to do something just slightly different.
yeah,
Yeah. I like the new chips on both sides of the window. I think it's at least a little more in the spirit of the game than the ass man chip was. I call it the ass man chip. It's an ass chip. It was stupid. I thought the swings were way too big for like how speculative it was really. I mean, you could get like 30 points a week if you were really lucky.
yeah,
And then, I just thought that it was just complicated. Didn't make a lot of sense. It wasn't super fun, at least with the double chips on both sides of the window. You're not just waiting to use all your chips in the second half of the season, which I felt like was always what you do. Like I never bothered to look at any chips besides the wild card in the first half. So it's nice to have like another wild card, another bench boost.
yeah.
I will say, I think they're going to be a lot less valuable in the first half of the season. I don't think there's going to be too much of a point to like stressing over them too seriously besides standard wild card practice, which I'm also tentatively pegging in for 8 or 13, but maybe we can get more into that later. Um, I think that I would caution against using them early because we just don't know what we don't know. FPL preseason plans are only as good as the first whistle, and then
Right.
you just rip them up, right? 50% of your team's going to be wrong. So maybe more into this later, but
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, literally, right? I'll, based on last season, it's definitely true.
Well,
But
Sharp brought up luck, and I think that's a very worthy caveat. This one, it's a game of there's a lot of variability. There's a lot of luck, right? But like specifically to myself, last year, there were multiple times where I either missed deadlines or accidentally benched players that I wasn't intending to, and it worked out better for me. So it's like me and Sharp can sit here and say we took one away from you for one season, but I think there were a lot of luck elements that went into that.
hey, vice versa.
Yeah.
I was going to say that goes both ways because I think there was a streak there towards the second middle half of the season where I had more points on my bench for about 8 weeks in a row than I had with people in my starting lineup, which is absolutely ridiculous because it was a coin flip. Like, it wasn't like one guy was right, one guy was wrong beforehand. Right. It was just like, didn't pick the guy that scored a hattie this week. Nice.
Yeah, it's definitely luck. To a big degree, kind of control the uncontrollables, but ultimately, like you said, it's a game. Nothing.
Yeah, that's the fun of it. 100%. All right, well, let's jump into a little bit of some of the like off-season stuff. Just touch on some teams and kind of where we think they're going to end up. I'm obviously going to start with Liverpool and Spurs. Mac, let's start with you with Spurs. Woof. I am nervous. I'm nervous for Spurs, man. Like, for any 2 or 3 people that may be listening, Mac is definitely the most knowledgeable about the Premier League just in general, like keeping up to date with all the transfers and stuff. I think at this point I'm obsessive enough that I know what's going on, but he has all the years of previous information to back that up. But even as somebody who's just getting caught back up, I'm like, wow, where did all the players go? You got Son coming to America to help us win the World Cup, which is going to be excellent. I saw they got beat like 4-0 in a preseason game the other day. Madison's out. Solanke is suddenly like not an option. The only player who I could see potentially being good from an FPL perspective is Porro. But even that, it's like he's a defender on a team that I'm not super confident. But I want you to tell us something different than that.
Hang on, I'm sorry. I want to make a caveat that I think there are more Tottenham players that could be fantasy relevant, and that's a little hint at what you might see later from Vibes FC.
We got a couple of Spurs guys in our lineups. All right.
I think this might be mission convince Sharpe not to use Tottenham players. Yeah. That might be the goal of this podcast. No, I think you summed it up really well, Luke. I'm not happy, honestly. Like, it's been a vibes roller coaster, to coin a term that floats around the Spurs fan base sometimes. Coming off the high of winning the Europa League that realistically we had no right to win, just, United was a bunch of dogs. So I was like, all right, this is good. This is the summer. We got spending on the way. We're going to get a new manager. It'll be awesome. Madison is injured. Solanke is injured. Udogie is injured. Solanke and Udogie should at least be back for at least the early part of the season. But then the Morgan Gibbs-White transfer fell through because of Mafia Marinakis. And yeah, it hasn't ended up being that great of a preseason. We've gotten Kudus, who I think is a great signing. It's a little ironic that Ange was screaming for a dribbly winger for like 2 years, and we get it after he goes. But I think the issues that we really needed to work on were, goals were fine last year. We definitely needed some more depth to compete on multiple fronts, like in the Champions League, but we really needed to strengthen our midfield, which we haven't. And I think we need a backup center back, which we haven't gotten. Couple that with the fact that I think Spurs are just going to be less attacking under Thomas Frank. And I think you might see more defensive solidity from a Spurs perspective, but you're going to see less goals. So that puts me, from a fan perspective, in a weird spot, because I just don't think we're going to do that well this season. I would argue that we have a worse squad with some of the experience that we've lost. And then from a FPL perspective, I just can't see us being that strong either out of the get-go, which is a little disappointing because the fixtures are so strong on paper.
Yeah.
But I don't think Spurs defenders are going to get as high up the field, particularly Porro or Udogie, the fullbacks. And then I just don't think that we're going to get a lot of goals. So I would avoid all Spurs assets.
Well, while you present some convincing arguments, I do want to ask a question there. You said it could be a worse season. Didn't you finish 17th last year? Is that where you finished in the table?
Yeah, but we won the Europa League, so better season than Arsenal.
More trophies to account. Well, I do think though, like it is a good question of like, when you think of Spurs, it's tough with all the injuries, but when you think of Spurs right now, you think of back and forth. Like there's going to be a lot of chances on both sides of the field, no matter who it is. I'm curious. I'm not going to go there, at least to start the season. To your point, they have great fixtures. Actually, that's a lie. I do have a Spurs player in my lineup now that I think about it. I don't want to go there, I should say. But I do wonder if you have somebody like Thomas Frank coming in who's trying to shore up the defense, who is a defense first manager. I start to wonder if that's going to be his only place to focus, and he starts to park the bus a little bit, try to bring everybody back, and maybe they become a little bit more stout defensively. I feel like I'm grasping at straws as reasons to go with Spurs, but could there be any truth to that?
No, I think that's the right call. I think if Spurs are going to improve anywhere this season, it is going to be defensively. I expect more clean sheets. I expect us to be a little more defensively solid. Like that was a huge problem last year for Spurs. We just didn't defend. That was great from an FPL perspective with attacking fullbacks like Udogie and Poro. But now, especially with the defensive contribution points added, I could see some higher upsides from some of the Spurs players defensively. I just think that it's going to break down in the midfield. We just couldn't get the ball forward under a very attacking style. I just don't see that improving with our main creative passer, Madison, being out and not having signed another 10.
Yeah.
So if I was going to go anywhere, I think that I would probably take a Spurs defender. I think Kudus is going to be a huge trap initially. Okay. I would steer away from Kudus, but I think that like a Van de Ven is someone I'm strongly considering for the rotational options.
Sharpe looks nervous.
Sharpe's got Kudus.
Okay, but I do have to ask you.
Hey, he's not nervous. He's got good vibes coming out of Kudos, and that's how we're referring to him now. I don't know how you actually pronounce his name, but
Kudos,
because he's going to be given. I'm going to be given some kudos for having him in the squad.
Like
Sharpe or Mac, do you feel like Madison being out bumps Poro at all? Because I know they compete sometimes on set pieces, so maybe that gives him more. I don't think I'm gonna go there, but if I wanted to find some money somewhere, maybe I would. Is there any reason to?
I think.
Are you interested at all?
That's a good point. I, to be honest, haven't considered Poro at all. If I was looking at anyone, I was looking at Van de Ven as like a cheaper defensive option. I think he's. I can't remember off the top of my head. Is he like 4.5? He's not 4. He's 4.5. I like that. I like Udogie, who's Poro's counterpart on the left side. I do think Poro could be on set pieces, which could be a huge advantage, but I just don't know if he's going to get up the field as much.
Yeah.
So
it's hard to say with a new system, like or a relatively new system, right? So
yeah, exactly. So I think my thoughts are, if I was going to go Spurs defender at all, I'd try to go for one of their cheaper assets just to target the good games like the Burnleys, the Sunderlands in the opening weeks, but not have to play them every week.
Gotcha. All right, let's transition to the exact opposite in Liverpool. Sharpe. There's so many players. There are so I didn't mean for this to be a dunk segment, but it kind of feels like Sharpe. There's so many assets that could be interesting at Liverpool. I am going without notably one of them. However, I think it's super interesting. I mean, the amount of turnover for a team that just won the championship is really surprising. Like, there's so many players potentially coming in. You might have Isak around the corner. You've got Wirtz. You still have so many attackers that could be really interesting. Where are you at with, I guess, with regards to Liverpool, but then regards to FPL, what interests you out of that group?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of nailed it in that there are so many new faces that I am super hesitant from both a fan perspective and an FPL perspective on really who to go into. I think, Trent was obviously gone. I mean, we knew that was happening for the majority of the season, and I'm pretty okay with it and got pretty okay with it because he can't defend for the life of him. I mean, that's ugly to watch on that side, but it was interesting to watch how they covered that with Gravenbach coming back a lot and being able to play that kind of defensive role. So I wonder how that's going to impact the entire defense, how it's going to come to fruition. But more importantly, he to Salah up that side was the entire creativity in that offense, it felt like most of the time. So really, I mean, what I do like is that we got a lot more creative, bringing a few of those guys in, and hopefully we get to see that coming through and having multiple lanes of attack versus essentially hoping Salah does his thing or Trent finds someone long. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the both wing back or left and right backs that we brought in there with Kirkez and Frimpong. Again, I read it how I read it. So if we need to change the enunciation there, go ahead and do it.
What I've noticed about the Brits, man, is they don't care about enunciation either. So it's all good.
God,
you just say whatever you want. They're way worse. It's just bad. We're awful.
Yeah, we're terrible.
I love it. I think the defense from that perspective is honestly going to get a little better. I mean, you still got Van Dijk back there calling the shots. I would love to get him a better center back counterpart at some point, but right now it's doing okay, and you still have Allison back there. I mean, you got to love that and feel pretty safe with that at all times.
So
But,
actually on that topic, if you don't mind me interrupting, I
yeah,
did see that Liverpool is linked to Guehi from Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
I think they made it pretty public that they're going to try to sell him this summer because he's got 1 year on his contract. So if he comes in, I know that might be a huge upside play because I think he's only 4.5 million.
He's 4.5, yeah.
And I could definitely see him starting with Van Dijk. He's in England starting center back, I think.
Yeah, that would be fantastic, especially with, Newcastle essentially all but shut down completely Isak. So I'm pretty confident we're not going to see him, which is too bad because he would have been my striker of choice. That's for sure.
I wouldn't be too sure yet. Everything I'm hearing is still full speed ahead on that. I think there's a good amount of, because other teams are making moves to, like, Newcastle is looking at bringing in Wissa from Brentford, and Brentford is looking to replace Wissa. Like, it kind of seems like it very well could not happen. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, right? But I wouldn't rule it out, is my point. It seems like there's still a lot of dominoes that could fall. Sidebar, I said this to you guys before. It is fucking bullshit that it's like until game week 4 we still have transfers that could come in. Don't they know I'm playing a game here that I care way too much about?
Yeah, the reasoning for that, to Mack explain it a bit, is just that historically you didn't used to be that way. It wasn't that way until I think 2 seasons ago, if I can remember correctly. It's just that every other league in Europe was like that, and so the Prem teams were at a huge disadvantage in the sense that their window would close and then they'd have to sell players at losses and stuff like that. So they extended it. In my opinion, they should just close all of the windows before the leagues start, but that's the reason. It's not that interesting.
I mean, they do. Comparing it to American sports, these guys do play an insane amount of games. It blows my mind. Year round, they're playing so much. So I guess it doesn't surprise me from that sense. Anyway, back to the Liverpool stuff. Sharpe, of the attackers, is there anyone that jumps out at you? It looks like Wirtz is going to get probably a good amount of minutes. Gakpo, suddenly you don't have Luis Diaz there. There's also, rest in peace, Diogo Jota for in the midfield as well. So there's quite a lot of change there, but I'm curious if there's any of the guys in that group that you like.
Yeah, I mean, one, obviously rest in peace, Jota. I mean, that was one of the saddest days, waking up to that news. Both him and his brother got a feel for that family and everyone associated with him.
It reminds me of the Johnny Gaudreau thing in hockey. It was like the same type of thing, off season, like road accident.
Yeah.
Super sad. Anyway, continue.
But no, absolutely. And you just hit on him again, because he truly was one of my favorite players to watch, because the pressure he would put on opposing defenses at the top was better than anyone else, honestly, I think we had. So the pressure and the energy that he put output up there was absolutely awesome. That's going to be missed. I'm pleasantly surprised Darwin's gone. Not surprised, but happy that Nunez is out of there. I don't need to watch him, although I guess Salah did his best impression of him with that PK, not yesterday or 2 days ago, whenever that was. So, but I think overall, with the same thing I said kind of at the beginning, there's so many unknowns and so many new pieces. I want to see how they all mesh before I really invest in any of them. So you'll see in my team right now, I'm going with the stalwarts and I'm not doing anything else there. I'm going to leave Wirtz. I know he's a popular pick. Don't know what he's going to do. We have a lot of pieces that can play throughout the midfield and into the attacking positions. So see where Slot tries to put him. But you'll see on my team who I still believe in. I don't think it's going to be any surprise. And I would caution any Liverpool asset, because anytime you see brand new people like that, it takes time to gel, no matter how talented you are.
No, I think that's fair. I mean, going into a season and you have that much turnover, I think it's smart to avoid. I mean, for the same reason, I recently pulled Liverpool out of my defense. I was going to go Van Dijk, pulled him out, kind of for the same thing of just the uncertainty of, I don't know how defensively they're going to set up. It seems like it could be a lot different from last year. But there are other reasons for that as well. Okay,
if I may make a quick addition to the Liverpool thing, I think the other consideration is that Liverpool assets are hella expensive, always. I mean, they're a good team. They just came off the Prem. It makes sense for those assets to be good. They get a lot of clean sheets. But it's a lot of money to invest in players that you don't know guaranteed minutes on, like Frimpong and Kirkez could absolutely light it up. I kind of expect them to, in fact, but we need to guarantee that they're going to be starters first. Now, Connor Bradley, I think, is going to be injured for the first part of the season, so that could be huge for Frimpong, but we don't know if Robinson's going to rotate with Kirkez to start. I think Wirtz should get a lot of time, but, at the same time, Gakpo is going to get more time now that Diaz is gone. So I think
that's the one I'm curious about. Like, if I really want to know how often he's going to rotate because to your point, they're all so expensive. So if you have Gakpo sitting here at 7.5 and playing every game, that seems essential to me. Like of a Liverpool attacker at 7.5, that seems essential. But maybe it's from last season just because of Luis Diaz, but I can't get myself to commit to a player that I'm not convinced is going to start. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like I'm just really
No,
curious because it's all kind of hinging on are they getting Isak? Like that's really the big question.
it is. It's valid, and I think the other thing is even if they do get Isak, he probably won't play the first week he's eligible to play. It'll probably take him a little bit to vet in. I think the other thing I'd say about Liverpool is that Slot historically is a heavy rotation manager. He's been doing this for a long time. I think he came from Feyenoord first, and if you look at his team data, super low injuries because he rotates well. It's something that I was criticizing Ange Postecoglou for doing, last year. Um, but they're fighting on every front, right? So, I mean, Liverpool doesn't have great first three fixtures. They got a good period in the middle, but when Champions League game starts in, that's another complication. So, definitely agree with waiting for them.
Sharpe, do you think they're running it back?
Yeah. I mean, why would I not think that? Come on.
Like, look at what I'm wearing. Look at what I'm wearing.
Yeah,
I'm there.
No, I think that it, as good as that season was, it got disappointing the way we lost out on trophies really pretty consecutively there to kind of bring a damper down on things. So I expect a prim, and I expect more out of them this season. I think if you go out and spend that much money, you better back it up.
Yeah, I do think that's interesting how much they spent. But let's move on from those two teams. Just what we can more briefly touch on a few more of these.
Yeah.
I think United is really interesting right now. You have a team that has a lot of the same players, but also just quite a few new ones that could potentially drastically change things, or it could be the same old shit, right? I love watching Cunha and Mbumo. As someone who only really got back into things a couple years ago, those are two of the most fun players to watch. So that's why I'm hyped on this team. Is just because I think it's cool. I think it's a cool mix of players. It's like fun to watch potentially. Do you guys think that experiment's gonna work out? Too much star power for one room? Where are we at?
I'm not concerned about the star power. What I am concerned about is just the time it's going to take the new players to bed in. And I'm kind of content to sit and wait on them. Like, I think that they're going to be decent this year. I like what they've been doing. I still think they're lacking a lot to be like a Prem winning team, but I think that they're going to score goals with some of the signings that they made in Cunha and Bumo. That being said, they've got a pretty terrible opening run of fixtures. So I think in their first six, they play Arsenal, Fulham, Burnley, that's good. But then City, Chelsea, Brentford, Sunderland, Liverpool, that's their first eight. So I don't feel the need to rush into them at all. We can just wait and see how it goes. The only person I'm strongly considering for my opening draft is Fernandez, just because he's King United. Set pieces, penalties, pretty high chance of getting defensive points, especially because Amarin plays a pretty defensive style. He's the only one that I'm really struggling to determine whether I should put my team, but everyone else I'm pretty content to wait.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I second that. And the only other thing I think of is when you bring in those teams bring in those players from essentially lesser clubs that are the star focus or like the main player in those, how are those all of a sudden going to mesh? Are they going to make each other better, or are they all going to try to play a relatively individualistic game? So I'm certainly not sold on them. I'm not sure who's going to stand out there. I'm not going any of them for all the reasons Mack just listed out as well. I'm not convinced it's going to make any difference. I think it's going to be kind of smaller fish trying to come in, and you're thinking they're bigger fish because they were in smaller ponds beforehand.
Yeah. I think the only thing that Mac brought up that's worth calling out is the defensive contributions. This is all midfield players sorted by how many defensive contributions they would have gotten last year. You have some of the guys that I've heard a lot about in Caicedo and Anderson as far as just being defensive mids. But when you start going down this list in order and looking, you're like, no. In terms of attacking threat, there isn't anybody that jumps out in terms of someone who gets up to the other end of the field. And then very quickly you find Bruno Fernandes, right? He's right here. He's crushing defensive contributions. And so I think for that reason, I don't know if you guys have gotten into some of the deeper models. I recently started exploring with the new Solio analytics, but it's more like predictive, and it is super, super high on Bruno Fernandes. And I think this is why, is because you have the potential for attacking outputs, but also, have these defensive contributions. I was really set on my draft yesterday, and then I sat there and went, "Shit, do I need Bruno Fernandez?" And like tore everything up for 5 minutes, not 5 minutes, a few hours, and then it was kind of like, "All right, we're gonna see what happens." But I do think it's like worth thinking about, and we haven't really talked about it, but these DEF CONs are really gonna change the landscape of the game. Like maybe you have to have more defenders, maybe defenders in general, rising tide raises all boats, and they're all going to be more valuable. Maybe you need to be looking at attackers like this who do everything as opposed to just score goals. I think it's super interesting. But
Yeah.
anyway, we could
No,
go ahead.
I'd like to touch on DEFCON points for a minute too. I agree with everything you said on Fernandez. That's the only reason I'm really considering, because I think with those DEFCON points, what the conclusion that I've come to, and if I'm going off last season, I'll just be proven wrong. So take this with a grain of salt. But I can't substantiate with any of these thoughts with any data, right? The season hasn't happened, but I don't think I'm going to go super big at the back, and I don't think they're as valuable as some people think they are, in the sense that I don't think that they turn a bad pick from last season into a good pick this season, right? If the team is good, I think they'll be good, but I was thinking about it, and I just think that you're going to take a cheap player that doesn't get a ton of clean sheets. And, if they're not getting a ton of clean sheets and they're not getting a ton of bonuses because they're not getting attacking, that's just 2 points on the floor. Or 4 points just for playing. Like, that's okay, but it's not amazing. Conversely, expensive players like Van Dijk might not get a lot of DEFCON points, but they'll probably get a lot of clean sheets, right? So I think the balance is just going to be trying to find like a mid-price defender who's capable of both clean sheets and DEFCON points. That's my bold prediction, but I don't think they're going to make very bad picks good picks. And I think they're going to raise the ceiling on good picks is kind of my conclusion.
Yeah, but I think like when you're talking about somebody like Bruno, he's somewhat of a unicorn, because it seems like in a lot of these players, whether it's a midfielder, whether it's a defender, you either have they're really good at def cons or they're really good at attacking. So finding a player now that can do both is kind of that's the blueprint. If you can get somebody like that into your team, that's the blueprint.
Agreed.
Similar to what you said about being wary of United, the only thing I'm concerned about is Bruno going to be doing as much defensively now that he has Cunha and Mbumo? Because it's just like, I think in theory, yes, but who knows? Maybe Mbumo's that guy that's cleaning stuff up. Maybe he's wiping up on the defensive contributions. We just don't know yet. And there's too much change for me to be confident in any of those guys. I really, I would love to have Bruno in my draft if I could. He's just expensive at 9 million.
Yeah, he's expensive for sure.
Yeah. So jumping into a couple more teams, I guess we can start with Nottingham Forest. I think they're a really interesting team to talk about just because they had such a solid season last year. Mack, I know you've said that you think they're going to come down a bit this year, which I think is pretty reliably correct, right? It has to come down to some extent. We saw them start to falter at the end of last year. Now they're playing in Europe as well, so it's they're not going to have as much depth as some of these top squads. That being said, their first few fixtures are phenomenal. Just to read them out here, I can actually share screen, but they have some unbelievable fixtures to start. You've got Brentford, Crystal Palace, West Ham, Arsenal, Burnley, Sunderland, and that's just the first 6. So as much as I agree with you, and I know that you're probably shorting your Nottingham Forest stocks, I'm really tempted by those fixtures to start. But I don't know what you guys think of them in general. Am I not saying enough about how good they could be?
Sharpe, unless you have any thoughts, I'll go again. I actually am down on them, but also not shorting them. So talking out of both sides of my mouth here is completely what I'll say. I don't think that I think the Forest overperformed last season, and then they kind of had like a disappointing end of the season. Everyone was bummed because they didn't get Champions League. But going into the season, no one expected them to get Champions League, right? I think historically, Nuno is a pretty defensive manager.
Right.
And Chris Wood was absolutely my guy last season.
He was my guy last year until I sold him, and then he super wasn't, and then he wasn't for the boys at all. So
exactly,
it's a tough transition.
Exactly right. You love him and hate him, but Chris Wood was awesome last season. I just don't think Chris Wood has that dog in him necessarily. That was his best season ever. And Chris Wood was a total boy. Nottingham Forest has played like a ton of preseason games and they've scored 2 goals one of which
Dude, it's
was
been 0-0 like every game, but also, hey, clean sheet every game. So that's pretty sick.
so that kind of brings me to my point, right? I think that Nottingham Forest is going to be really solid defensively, but I am steering very clear of their attacking assets. I'm even pretty concerned about Anderson, who seems to be everybody's 5.5 mid of choice because, well, I think he's going to get a lot of defensive contributions. I just don't think that he's going to get a ton of attacking returns, at least with how they've been demonstrating preseason form.
Yeah.
That could change. I think that Nottingham Forest has made some smart signings. That being said, I am actually praying on their downfall because of Mafia Marinakis. So if they could just get
Yeah, they still got
relegated,
Gibbs White. They're going to be fine, baby. We're good.
if they could just do us all a favor and get relegated, that would be amazing. And it sucks because
Wouldn't that be wild?
I was so high on them because like they're a historic team, and I was like, it's so good to get them back in the Prem. But enemy's number one, like straight up. Well, enemy's number like 4, to be honest, but they're up there.
Sharpe, do you have any love for Forest?
No, honestly, no love. Not in the starting squad. I think Matt kind of touched on. I just think it's one of those teams where an average team put together an incredible season, hit their strides at the right time, got hot, played well. I don't foresee that continuing again. And maybe I have a little bit of anger towards them because I think I referenced earlier how I picked the wrong guy in about 8 weeks last season. And it was almost always the incorrect Forest player going back and forth. So
there is something to that about hating a team like for an FPL purpose. Like mine is Bournemouth for the same reason. Like I was always just like, I can't figure out which one of these guys is good, so I don't like them. Like I just don't. There's something about them. I'm like, I can't stand that team.
Kind of been
I
City
will.
historically for me.
Yeah, exactly. The pep roulette. But I will say, Sharp, that when we come around to drafts, I'm gonna try to convince you on some Forest stuff. We'll get there, but
hey,
I'm gonna try to sell you.
I'm open. We know how I am. I'm not like tied to my players. I can tell you that much. But dude, I think it was so funny because complete vice versa of that. Sorry, we can move on from this in a minute, but I loved Phil Foden my first season because I absolutely hit on him for no reason, but he became best player ever to me.
That was crazy because Phil Foden has never had a good fantasy season before that. And it was like, I was telling you guys, like, he's not good. Well, he's good in real life. He's just not a fantasy player. But I was like, he's not a good fantasy asset. And then I was proven so wrong and he hasn't been good since then. So I feel validated. But like,
well, okay, perfect transition. I was just going to say, I feel like the next team we should touch on is Man City. Like losing KDB, Phil Foden has an absolute dog shit year. It seemed like Pep was out of ideas. And now they kind of go with a different model than what they've been looking for with Nori. Trying to think who else they have, but I saw today that Savinho might go. But they've been bringing in interesting players to make it seem like it's gonna be less of the standard Pep like defensive, rely on your old and reliable midfielders and a little bit more firepower potentially. Do you guys have any love there? I think it's similar with the Pep Roulette to what we've been talking about not trusting a team with a bunch of newness, but at the same time, I mean, they're a top side, so going against them seems tough. So I'm curious to hear what you guys think there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit on it there in the second half of that question. New faces a concern, Pep Roulette, not knowing exactly who's going to play, and then at the end of the day, a lot of them still feel a little expensive. I mean, Holland obviously is super expensive, so it becomes really difficult to even get him in there. And while he was I feel like at the end of or most of 2 seasons ago and at the beginning of last season, it was like if you don't have him in, you're screwed. Like you're up a creek without a paddle. And then obviously he gets hurt. He's out for so long. It didn't seem like he came back quite as I mean, saying, he's not going to be the top scorer in the league doesn't seem like that should be such a big take, but at that price point, that's like what you need for him to be. So I didn't get that way towards the end of last season. I don't have a lot of love for them right now, except for in the defensive portion of the field.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. For all the reasons Sharpe and Luke, you guys have already listed, I completely agree. Like City, I think they're going to be good this season. I mean, City had their like worst season since they became good and they got third. So like other teams would dream about that. I don't know. Spurs might dream about that sometimes. But like City is just a tricky team because they're like Liverpool, but they're a lot less predictable. So they're equally as expensive in a lot of their assets. I feel like they're coming into the season as if like it was Liverpool minus Van Dijk and Salah, right? Like they lost some like central core leadership. We don't know who's going to step up. We don't know who their new guys are. They have a couple enticing assets, but it's like, are those guys going to start consistently? And it's a lot of money to invest in players that you can't guarantee are going to start. So I'm not going to add much else there, but I think for all the reasons you guys listed, I'm a little cool on City until we figure them out. And then they also, I think, have a pretty good fixture swing. So there's no real reason to jump on their assets immediately, because in their first couple of games they play, I mean, who do they play? Let me see if I can learn to read and find them. They play Wolves, Tottenham, Brighton, United, Arsenal, Burnley. So like they're pretty good assets, but all the way through game week 10, they got pretty good, games. So I think as long as you have a well-structured team, you can move into their assets as needed. Like if Van Dijk is not performing, you have him, you can move into an 8 or Gavardabal. Or if Anderson's not performing, you could go to a Reiners, or that one's definitely not pronounced well. The only guy who's really
I
scaring
always
me
want to
is
say reindeer.
Reindeer. Well, we should just call him that. Let's call him Reindeer
Reindeer.
from now on. The only guy who's really scaring me is Holland, right? Holland's a beast. He's the cyborg boy. He's the monster boy. He, in his career, has averaged more than a goal a game. And I'm a little nervous about Salah for the same reason that I'm not nervous about Holland, in the sense that Liverpool has so many more offensive assets this year that I'm
Right.
afraid of the goals getting spread out. Whereas on City, it is Holland, right? We know every ball is ultimately going to go to him. And so, it would not be surprising if he returns to form and just starts putting them away and everyone starts sweating.
Mac, I love the gold that you're spitting right now. We are going to be on the same team.
Don't worry, you will have a differing opinion in here.
I'm sure.
Well, no, but I do think I think to your guys' point about expense, I think that's smart, right? You don't want to pay for players that you aren't certain are going to start. And outside of Gvardiol and Holland, I don't think there's a whole lot of players that you can say confidently they're going to play 90 minutes every game. I think the only player worth talking about in that sense that could be cheap is 5.5 million. You have Reindeer. He's over here. He scored 2 goals at the weekend. I think 5.5 is a price where I'm comfortable going for a player that is a little bit of a minutes risk. I don't have in my draft right now, but I think for 5.5 for a player on a top team is where you start to be like, well, that might actually be worth it. So definitely somebody I'm keeping my eye on. And Mac, I know we've talked on Anderson. There's probably some other 5.5s we'll touch on, but that seems like a price point where the pricing is tough this year. Like I feel like finding players below like 7 million in attack is really, really tough. And even 7 million doesn't feel like a good bracket. So I feel like you have to have some of those budget guys in there, somebody sub 6. And if you're looking at one of those guys and they play for a top team like City, I like that. I think I also just see City as, yes, last year they were not reliable. They had a down year and they still finished what, second, third? Like I just feel like they're bound to rebound to some extent. And to your point, that all goes through Holland. And I'm not glued to Holland for the whole year, but looking at this first set of fixtures, like I just think back to last year. I think back to the start of the season. I think back to him just absolutely going nuclear in the first few weeks. Granted, that was coming off a completely different season, but those fixtures scare me. Like even if I was going with Salah, like those fixtures freak me out. Whereas Liverpool have genuinely some pretty tough fixtures. Newcastle and Arsenal 2 and 3, like that's not something I'm fawning over, but it is Salah. Like it is more the known quantity of somebody coming off a stellar season.
One more
So
thing I also want to add about City real quick is just that Rodri's injured again, right? So he's out for probably till the first international break. And as soon as Rodri got injured last year, their clean sheets fell off. I mean, Rodri won the Ballon d'Or for a reason, right? He is the best holding defensive midfielder in the world. He was fundamental to that team, and they didn't have a good backup option for him, quite frankly, last year. So that's the other thing that's making me put a pause on City defensive assets specifically right now, is just that we don't know how good defensively they're going to be in the short term until Roger gets back. Once Roger gets back, I think that the defensive floor on the entire City line goes through the roof.
And just to confirm, you are anti Phil Foden. You think last year or 2 years ago when he was Prem Player of the Year was the exception to the rule, not the rule, correct?
I am anti Phil Foden for an FPL perspective. I think he's a great player. I do think some questions need to be asked on like when he's going to hit those peaks that everybody thought he was. I mean, he broke into the Manchester United first team at like 16, 17 years old. It's crazy. Um, he broke in so young, but I mean, he's never had more than like that season 2 seasons ago was his best season. Now he's dealing with an injury concern. And it's not like he's like 21 anymore. So, Phil Foden definitely needs a strong year. I'm not anti Phil Foden in real life. I think he's a phenomenal player. I just don't think that translates well to FPL.
Luke, I appreciate that you got that on recording, so that when Foden has his best year ever, that it is stated here first.
that we can have this clipped. We're good to go. Yeah.
No, I'm hoping for it. I've been a big Phil fan, like in real life. Love the kid. I just don't think it lends itself. His play style lends itself to FPL.
Fair. God, we're old enough that we start calling players kids now.
Absolutely yeah, right. Brutal. Well, I think he's like a year younger than me or something. But
all right, so let's talk. I mean, we have the fixture ticker up, but let's also talk. We briefly touched on some chips. When are you guys tentatively planning on playing chips? Is Vibes FC, is there a plan, or is it just, grip it and rip it whenever? What's the tentative strategy there with the change this year?
Hey, I mean, to be honest, it's grip it and rip it. Like, come on, you knew the answer to this.
You already know.
But I do think there's a little bit of logic to it with how often you get to play them, and that they reset, and that I have 5 transfers. I don't need to plan more than 3 weeks in advance in some instances. Like, I'm not super concerned about it. By the time I'm looking at that head, okay, I can flip over a third of my team easily, or it's time to use whatever now. I'm not too concerned about it. I think it'll start to become a little clear, and I think it can sometimes be helpful to not rush into them or have a set plan and let the season unfold in the beginning.
I hate to say I think that's like very sage advice. I hate that I agree that that's actually probably.
Come on, I told you there's a little method to the madness over here.
Mac, what about you?
I've been contemplating the game week 1 bench boost that's out there, but I know in my heart of hearts that I'm just not going to do it because I said this earlier, but I mean, your preseason plans are good up until the first whistle. And then we just don't know what we don't know. I think that the point swing in the first half of the season from the bench boost is not going to be that strong, but I think if you want to go for a really, really strong bench boost in game week 1, then you need to plan the wild card in game week 4. You could bench boost in 1 or 2 to be fair, but I think the 2 strategies with the bench boost are either go for like a strong bench boost and then wild card, or go for like a weaker bench boost and then don't wild card. But if you're going for a weaker bench boost, then I just don't see the value in bench boosting at all, and I really don't want to burn my wild card that early. So I'm fairly certain I'm just going to wait on all the chips. I think I'm tentatively planning either game week 8 or 13 wild card, just because there's some good fixture swings. I think the later I could hold that would be great, so I could try to save some of those AFCON transfers we get. But yeah, I think that in FPL, the more information you can get is always going to be better. And I could, if there's a weather postponement or something towards the later half of this first half of the season, I would rather have the freedom to adapt then.
Yeah. As far as bench boosting goes, when I first saw the rules come out, my immediate thought was the bench boost 1. Reason that came to me, or like why I thought of that, was because last year James from Planet FPL did the bench boost 1, and I was always like, damn, that must be nice. Like, you don't have to plan into it. I hate planning into a bench boost. It feels like you're wasting transfers. It feels like you're making suboptimal plays. And I was like, I'm totally doing it. I'm doing bench boost 1. And then as we got closer, I remembered how last year I went with Barco, who was like, yeah, he's just a great cheap pick. He's going to be good to go. And he got loaned out immediately. So it made me realize, like, no, I think I want to do bench boost 2. And so then I was kind of using confirmation bias where I was just set on bench boost 2, and I was finding ways to prove to myself that bench boost 2 is right. And the further I've gotten into it, the more I lean towards what you guys are saying of like, I don't know if it's worth planning for. I think I tend to lean, Mac, more on the weaker bench boost side of things. We don't have double game weeks to plan for, so I don't think it's as powerful, at least in this part of the season, as it normally is. So I'm not really caring about getting somebody in who's got a stellar week 2 fixture. I do have some players in that are tentatively planning for bench boost 2. I know Burnley plays Sunderland, and that's kind of where I'm going just from a cheapness perspective, but I'm not glued to it. I just have kind of looked through my team that I'm currently going with, and seeing when it might look good. Another option for me might be bench boost 5, but I don't think I'm really going to plan too much around it. If there's a player that, like, if my backup goalie doesn't play, I'm not I'm not super pressed about it. Maybe I'll make the transfer, but I'm not really worried about it. As far as the wild cards, I think 13 is good, and the reason why, Sharp, if you haven't seen this, is when you look at game week 1, this is ranked in terms of difficulty. The teams at the bottom here, like some of the big ones, you have Liverpool, you have City, you have Newcastle, you have Man United, that all have really brutal fixture runs for the first 12. And then once you go to game week 13 and on, they all come right to the top. So just a huge switch for all those teams is why it seems like that's a pretty popular wildcard strategy. But I've also been just kind of playing around with my team and looking at the specific weeks I want to go with it. Obviously, I've alluded to I'm going with Holland, and in game week 7 is when a lot of teams switch. So United is one of them where I'm really interested in the United assets, and giving them 6 weeks to maybe mature and then switching in game week 7 works. I'm happy to hop off Holland in 7. I'm happy to jump onto some of the Arsenal guys like Saka and maybe Gyökeres if he's any good, if I'm saying that right as well. Um, so I think I'm with you guys. I'm pretty open. It feels, I like that it's more free, and I think this is part of why I like that they added both sides of the chips, is that it's like it's not all anchored around some double game week fixture. Like it's just like whenever you want to do it, which I think adds variability and adds strategy. Like people are going to be like, oh, I'm going to bench boost 5. I'm going to bench boost 12. I'm going to wild card 7. So I really like that.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said, for the record. Put it on the record.
I'm putting it on the record. Putting it on the record. You hate Phil Foden and you are flexible in your strategy. We're good to go.
Please also add to the record that I hate you. Just
and that you hate Nottingham Forest as well. Yeah. It's all on record now. You can't dispute any of it.
I don't want to dispute any of that. I'm fine with it.
All right. Well, I think we've talked enough about high level stuff. Who wants to share their draft? I'm so excited about this because I just know we're going 3 completely different ways, and I cannot wait. So let's start talking through it. Let's start talking statistics, what your strategy was, all the whole 9 yards. Should we start with Vibes FC? I think that's maybe where we should start.
Also start with Vibes FC. It's going to be the most different,
draft, baby.
It is going to be the most different. Mac, I think you've actually seen it. I haven't made any changes since.
Then I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. But you said we're going to start talking statistics. I was going to say that's crazy.
That was a slip. I shouldn't have handed it right over to you. There's no chance.
But I do want to say I have a statistic for you.
Wow.
Since the 17-18 season, the guy that you are avoiding has been the FPL game's leading scorer 4 times.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Damn. I don't. That doesn't make me feel good.
So
is that right?
Yeah.
Oh,
check me.
Absolutely right. No,
if I'm coming with a statistic, I've checked it.
I thought it was higher, to be honest. I thought it was like past 5 or 6 seasons.
Oh God, that's so brutal. All right.
Haaland took over. Palmer took over 1, but
yes,
did Kane get 1 in there?
I mean, I don't know. He's in Germany. He's not my priority right now.
Fair enough.
Okay, sorry. I would like to share this. You guys are gonna have to guide me through this since I've not done that yet. But in terms of how it looks on your side of things, how do we come through? I know
it's pretty good. Why do you have the old UI somehow?
Yeah, I don't know. I logged in.
I'm so jealous. I don't know how you did it.
It's a set of skills that I have, but to touch kind of on some thought processes that I had in here, because surprisingly there were. I'm sure there are players you want to call out right away, but we're gonna get to that in a second. You guys know, I know we talked about it last season a fair amount. I love playing 4 at the back. For me, getting 3 solid attackers in there can be a balance of money and not having any left really quickly. So for me, finding value at 6 million, that with the DEFCON points that we've touched on, I know these guys aren't necessarily your go-tos for specific DEFCON points, but I think they're some of the best players in the league. So we got them representing in the back line. Van Dijk, I think we all knew I was going to go there. No shocker. The clean sheets, hoping for some DEFCON points out of him, but just the overall skill of Liverpool. I know weeks 2 and 3 are going to be tough, but that's all right. Gabriel and Gavardiol, I got 3 6 million guys back there, but again, great teams, great talents. That's kind of where I was going. Moreno, I am looking at possibly flipping out for Juan Bissaka. I was kicking that around, but I need to free up a $500,000 somewhere, so that probably comes out of my bench if I'm being honest with you.
Wait, is
But
Moreno 4 million? Or
How much is he?
yes, sir.
Huh?
oh wow.
Is he gonna start? I don't know who he is.
I would be nervous about that as well. I know the name Alex Moreno. I just don't know. The fact that
Yeah,
he's priced
exactly.
at 4 million makes me think that he might be a minute's risk. But
There's always that shit. We'll see. We'll find out. You know, he doesn't play. We got bench players there for a reason. It's all right. Speaking on the bench, I mean, you can see it's kind of made up of some pretty cheap guys down there and guys with good fixtures coming out of this. I mean, I know they're not necessarily the most talented people in the world, but Sunderland in game week 1 for Fulkrug, and then I believe it's Sunderland in game week 2 here for Burnley as well.
Yep.
So, I mean, feeling pretty good about those options there. The goalies, again, we made room in the defensive line to go expensive, so they're pretty cheap guys. Showing some love for Kelleher. I hated watching him at Liverpool because if he was there, we were letting goals in. But you know what? He's going to show out. He's going to get some saves if he plays and gets recovered from the knock, quickly. So cheap guys that are going to take a lot of shots on target, hopefully get a lot of saves is really where I'm going there with goalie. Taking it to the midline, there's your boy, Mr. Kudos, for the Hotspur. He could be in jeopardy after this conversation, but right now he's in there. We'll see. I hope he does some. Hope he looks okay. And then I couldn't get away from Palmer. Obviously, I've touched on Salah enough. I mean, I have a Liverpool bias. There's no doubt about it. But again, 4-time leading scorer in the past, 6 seasons. I don't know how you go away from that. I know the fixtures aren't the best. I still don't know how you go away from it. I don't think anyone could convince me differently. I went right with Haaland at the beginning of last season. Let's hope I go right without him here. Could be kicking myself not too soon down the road, though, for that. The attack is where I feel the least confident, to be completely honest with you. It just felt like the guys at the prices that could fit in there, and it's a bit of good fixture and hoping they pan out.
Okay, can I give my initial thoughts since you've seen it already, Mac? My first thought when I saw this was, how is this under budget? And I say that because the big at the back is so I'm very pro big at the back. I was on that strategy from the jump. I think with DEFCON, like all those guys could be phenomenal this year. As far as I remember, I don't think Gabriel is like stellar for DEFCON points, but he's kind of just a lock because of his attacking threat and his clean sheet potential. I think having an Arsenal defender is just smart. Gavardiol, I mean, like he's a guaranteed starter or next to guaranteed as you can be in Pep's system to start. And then Van Dijk is just a monster. So I'm good with all 3 of those picks. I don't hate it. Yeah, I would make sure that Moreno is starting, but I think also you could just right now be putting in Fulkrug instead of Alex Moreno and then be fine. My only problem with okay, I'll keep going through. Kudus, I recently saw something from a Spurs fan saying that he's the most, at this point in time, the most locked player on their team as far as minutes, just because they're so injured and whatnot. So I like that. I think this is like a hot take from the community. I hate and die. And the reason being, I just cannot trust going with an Everton attacker. But I don't think you are making any sort of mistake by picking that player. I can't deal with having somebody on that team until they prove to me that they can attack. I will not do it. I got burned with McNeil last year, and I'm not doing it again. But you saying that you're worried about attack with Watkins and Bowen and Fulkrug, I think that's fine. I think that's going to be great.
I think the worry comes from no Haaland. I mean, I think genuinely he's that big of a presence that.
But if you're going Salah, like you're not going to go both. So it's like if you're going Salah and you trust that Salah is better than Haaland, then you're making, if that is what you believe is going to happen, then you're making the right choice there. I wouldn't worry about it. The only thing there is that having both guys from West Ham seems like it's going to be difficult because in weeks 2 and 3, they play Chelsea and Forest. In week 7, they play Arsenal. Like they have a pretty solid fixture run from the jump, but having both of them also, potentially having them cannibalize each other's goals, I think that's tough. But I love Bowen as a pick. I've always loved Bowen as a pick. I think he's great. Fulkrug, I've heard is underpriced. I've heard a lot of people like West Ham fans saying that they think he's underpriced. So yeah, I think this is a really solid draft. I really do. The keepers could be tough. I think you really run into problems just in general with this bench being thin. That's more of like a difference in strategy, though. I think you're obviously going balls to the wall with it. You'll see when we come to mind, like I get scared of going for cheap players and having dead spots. I think it's good that you don't have that at a forward. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't hate this, honestly. Mac?
I think so. Just response to the strategy of
The
putting
rebuttal.
it on no
rebuttal.
no rebuttal. To the strategy of going all in and then having cheaper benches and cheaper players around is you have to make a choice every week if you have guys around the same budget. I don't want to have to necessarily be making those tough choices every single week, both from a mental health perspective as well as just thinking I got the best players on the pitch on my squad.
I do think the big at the back thing is a really interesting debate, though. Like, because right here you're spending a shit ton of money in your back line, right? It's for the reason that you just said, that I like that strategy, right? You don't have to touch these guys. You can play, doesn't matter what their fixtures are. 3 of those 4 guys you can play every week. So I really like that. But it also, the flip side of that coin is that maybe DEFCONs make guys who are priced at 4.5 that much more attractive and make them, the rising tide. And from what Max said, I feel like that's where you land, right? Is, hey, go for that cheaper or mid-price guy that could get some DEFCONs, but don't spend too much money in the back.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said. I generally like to go less for defenders just because I think that their points are so based on clean sheets. And I said that, well, the floor is raised for defenders. I still think they're at a low risk of getting bonus points, generally speaking. So I don't know. I personally am not a huge fan of big at the back. That being said, there's been some seasons where I've gone big in the back because that was the best strategy. I just don't like to start with that. I took a look at Moreno's minutes in preseason. He hasn't played a minute, so I would caution you against that. I think it's the only thing. And then I agree.
So you're saying he's fresh?
I'm saying he's going to be real fresh. All season is what I'm thinking. And then
he's going to be fresh because he's going to be working at Subway halfway through the season.
And then I think that Ndai is also someone who makes me nervous, who I see in a lot of teams, just because, like Everton signed Jack Grealish today on loan. And I said, that doesn't move me at all. I don't want an Everton attacker. I think they'll be really stout defensively. But other than that, I've had probably some combination of every single one of these players in my team at some point. So I think I've been here and I might go back to something like this before the preseason starts.
Yeah, I feel like, so obviously you got to fix the Alex Moreno spot then. And I think the tough thing here would be if you got an injury to one of your main guys, because you just don't have the money on the bench to replace them. So taking an Ndai down to like a 5.5, which is less than ideal, but it frees up enough money that you can upgrade Alex Moreno. You can maybe upgrade somebody on your bench or one of your keepers or something like that, just to make it like a little bit more set and forget. Because as much as you're sitting here being like, I don't want to touch it, I want to worry about football season, you have to. If you get an injury to one of these guys, you're gonna have to scramble. But I think this is a great draft.
I think I agree with. I mean, obviously the Moreno thing, can't argue with that. Probably needs to take a second look. Still plenty of time though before the season here, so I'm glad someone's tearing it apart in a positive way. The only thing I would say is I still feel like I have a ton of flexibility no matter what, because someone gets injured, I'm most likely going to have stacked transfers to take care of that issue.
True.
Like, I think it goes back to Mack's point, or that at least he's made, whether it be on camera or off camera, that the 2 transfers required a little more skill and a little more paying attention. I think the multiple transfers, the amount of free chip usage that we get, or chip usage, I should say, I just don't feel hemmed in by that. They don't scare me.
Yeah, I mean, they're good thoughts. I get it.
Can I ask you about captaincy? You have Salah and Palmer. Looking at it at the beginning of the season, are there a lot of times? Are you perma-captaining Salah, or are you gonna jump over to Palmer at any point?
No, I definitely am not perma-capping. I definitely did that for the majority of last season, and it worked out well. Like, don't get me wrong, but I think towards the end of last season, you kind of saw where that could falter, and try to play more off of the fixtures that they have each week. I know it's on Salah right now. I'm not going to say that's 100% locked in. I think there's still some moving parts here before the beginning of the season, but again, I have that bias, so he's probably going to be on there more than it should be.
I like it. I also really like Bowen. I think that's a great pick. I think he's got great fixtures. I think he's probably underowned. I don't know what his ownership is, but I'm sure it's too low. I love a player who's a talisman. Yeah, 20%. Like a player who's going to just consistently be the guy. And I don't think that's going to be a change. Him moving to forward is unfortunate, but other than that, like
That's interesting. I have some thoughts on Bowen that I'll get to later in my draft.
hell yeah. Well, let's jump to yours.
Yeah, I got a couple. I'm going to start with my original draft, the draft that I would consider my real draft, and then we'll finish it up with the draft that I have actually in my team. This was my original draft. What I think you'll notice is that Sanchez and now that Dubravka is confirmed at, I think it's Burnley for 4.0 million, have been in every draft. I just think that the Chelsea fixtures are pretty solid. There's high upside with Sanchez being a pretty premium goalkeeper. And Dubravka just being a cheap 4 million backup. It's the strategy I like. I'd like to plug Sanchez in and then just never change him basically ever. I don't even worry about my goalkeeper in most seasons. I typically prefer like a 4.5 mil goalkeeper, but I just don't think that the pricing is lending itself to that this season. What I will say about Dubravka is that he's potentially injured, so need to watch out for that one. Him being a 4.0 million player, if he gets transferred out a ton in the first week, we're in a little bit of trouble. Then I went for Murillo to capitalize on just some of those DEFCON points. You know, he's pretty up there, and Forrest is pretty solid. Guardival, Wan-Bissaka, because I think he's going to have a pretty attacking role. Nothing surprising in the midfield with Salah Palmer. I mean, Palmer is now the highest owned player. It's either Palmer, Holland, or Palmer Salah. Rogers, who's now injured, Sarr, who in hindsight I don't think has great fixtures, and then Bowen and Watkins. So that's just where my head was initially at. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second and share.
Oh no, wait.
Oh, you want it?
I feel
Well,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not even my draft. Like I'll just move on.
Okay.
no,
Well,
yeah. I mean, I get that, but I just don't know how I feel that you think you're now so much smarter, and it felt like we had a lot of overlap in that first one. That's what I don't like.
Well, to be honest, when you showed me yours, I started looking a little more seriously.
You're like, damn, maybe I should go back, dude. That's the problem with these drafts, man.
You're right. So if I were to, what I will say on that last draft though is if I were to have a big at the back, those are probably some of the players I was considering. The Van Dijk.
I was going to give you shit too because I was going to be like, you've been saying not to go big at the back. Look at this shit. Anyway,
I'm not saying not to go big at the back. I'm just saying it's not how I typically like to play. This is the draft that I would consider like my actual draft. It's not what I have currently in the FPL app, but it's got Sanchez, Dubravka, nothing surprising there. Virgil, just because, you know, he's like my one premium defender. And then Nico Williams, who I think is a super high upside pick, as is a lot of people, and he's 0.5 million cheaper than the rest of the Forest assets. So he's someone who I really like just because he gets the con points, but he also gets the attacking points because he's a fullback, wingback. I don't remember technically what he is, and he's half a mil cheaper. So gives a little bit of an easy route into that Forest defense. And then Tarkowski. I realize I've never pronounced it out loud before right now. Just because he also gets those DEFCON points, and I think Everton is pretty solid at the back recently. He's really expensive though, and I'm not too convinced on him because I'm like, is there another 5.5 mil player that I could trade him out for equal value or maybe higher value from the better team? Because Everton has not been good for a couple years. Their good is like, okay, we're out of the relegation territory in February. And I know as a Spurs fan, I shouldn't be like chatting shit about that, but like, you gotta be real careful with them. So I don't know about clean sheet potential, and I don't know how convinced I am about DEFCON points yet. So I think those will add up though, to be fair.
I think it's also worth considering like the difference between the Dyche Everton and the Moyes Everton, right? Like, are they going to be as defensively focused? And again, trying to avoid uncertainty, I feel like that's worth thinking about with Everton. But I mean, I don't think Tarkowski's a bad pick at all.
Yeah, so he's in here again. Like my draft's probably going to change 100 times before we go live. But he's shoehorned in there right now because it also works with the rest of the draft.
Right, and I'd be much more sure to bet on their defensive assets than their attacking ones.
Yep, I agree.
I don't disagree with any of that, and I think he's a good pick there. But I'm also, I don't know, maybe it's my continued thought on Wan-Bissaka, but putting him in there like 4.5, getting to upgrade one of your 5.5 middies feels like an opportunity.
So over who?
I would over Santa's
Like one of the 5 and a
reindeer.
halves.
Yeah, one of the 5.5s, either
Oh,
Anderson or
Rudolph?
No,
yeah.
so that's an interesting segue. My problem is that I don't want too cheap defenders necessarily, right? Like, so if you look at my bench, I got Diouf, who I think is going to start most games, and he's pretty attacking for West Ham. I think that it seems the general consensus is that he's actually going to be more attacking than Wan-Bissaka for the same price. So I've switched Wan-Bissaka out for Diouf, and then I got Esteve, who I basically plan on never ever playing if I can avoid it. So that gives me 4 playing defenders that I like to be able to rotate in and out for like a Reiners when he's Reindeer when he's got a good game or a bad game, or like an Anderson if he's got like a tough matchup versus like a City or an Arsenal or something like that. So that's where I kind of want to make the trades. I don't want to put a ton more money into West Ham though, so I could pull back in Wan-Bissaka, but I already have Diouf in there, so I would just swap those two as kind of my rebuttal on that.
But to a different 4.5, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So like I want a playable fourth defender, but I'm still not huge and big on the back. So I also just think that the value you get from a 4.5 million midfielder versus a 4.5 million defender is a big swing. I think it's better to have a 4.5 million defender over a 4.5 million midfielder because the 4.5 million mids just don't do anything. They don't play. They don't get points. They don't get goals or assists. Moving up to the midfield, I got Salah again. Salah is in literally every single one of my drafts, and I have only recently, as of like last night, started maybe eyeing up Holland a bit. So I'm not sure he's going to stay there. We'll see. I got Verts because he fits really well, and the main money hog is the big top with the Bowen Watkins. The big criticisms I have of this draft is Mark Gu. You know, he hasn't gotten any minutes in preseason. I'm not convinced he's going to start. So it's pretty well known. But just if his ownership starts decreasing, because a lot of people are transferring out, we're going to have a Barco situation last year where we have an underpriced player in our team and we're going to be at 0.99 mil and we're not going to be able to make that 5.0 to 5.0 transfer, that 5.5 to 5.5 transfer because we lost team value. So that's what really scares me about that. Similar with Esteve, like he should play. I plan on having him bench riding, so I'm not as concerned about that. But this Watkin Bowens top is just, it's a money hog. It makes me have to play 2 5.5 mil mids and Verts. So I have a triple up on Liverpool, which I'm a little bit concerned about. That's kind of my main criticism of this draft as it stands.
Sharpe loves it. Sharpe's just sweating with how much Liverpool is in this draft.
He loves it. So before you guys get the commentary, I'm going to switch over to the draft that is currently in my team.
This wasn't the real one either?
I told you guys this before.
Third time's the charm. All right. I'm glad I didn't have any thoughts.
So what I will say is that last draft is like, you guys see my page, all right?
No, it's not up yet.
Oh no, it was up.
Pause for technical difficulties.
Right. Okay. My last draft, to be fair, is what I would say is my current draft. It's just
do you see it, Sharpe? Okay, now I see it. Never mind.
Oh, this is the new. This isn't very different.
So it's not too different. The problems that I tried to address with this draft was the big front, because I have concerns about Bowen's fixtures, I think is one of the things I was going to say. Yeah. You mentioned earlier, Luke, that you like think that Bowen has nice fixtures, and I think that's true, but I don't think that's off the top of my head until like the first 4 or 5.
2 and 3 he has Chelsea and Forest. Like I'm not going there for the same reason. Like I think overall, if you're looking at the first 12, West Ham are 7th in the fixture ticker.
Yeah.
But so that's what I mean. But no, in the first 3 he's got Chelsea and Forest. So I hear you on that.
But can you pass up Sunderland week 1?
No, and that's the problem, right? Like I had Bowen in that last draft because of that. But if you look, in this draft, I have Fulkrug, which is just trying to free me up a little bit more money for that forward line on more diverse targets. Because I have Fulkrug, I was able to afford Strand Larson. I just lost it to speak. And then I don't have Mark Gu, so I'm not really as concerned about like losing a ton of team value. I think that this bench is a lot stronger than the last bench I showcased. I think the problem with this,
how much is Fulkrug?
Fulkrug is only 6.5. I completely agree, or 6.0 actually. I completely agree that he's underpriced as well. I think he has 1 or 2 goals in preseason. I think Bowen is more likely to be the point scorer because he is the creative force behind the West Ham attack as well as a goal scorer. So I think his ceiling is higher, but I think Fulkrug, if you need the money, is a good option. And I'm really nervous about some of those 7.5 mil strikers. Like Solanke, I think would have been my shoe-in striker, but he's just been injured in preseason. We don't know how good Spurs are going to be. João Pedro, I think, is a minutes concern. So I really like him, but I am concerned about his minutes. So this is just an option that doesn't use a 7.5 million midfielder and kind of solves like that Mark Gu problem and takes Bowen out.
Yep.
The problems I have with this draft though is like you heard me shit on Pedro Porro and just Spurs
I was
at the
gonna say,
beginning
dude.
of the beginning
So
of the podcast.
is this the final draft?
Oh god, no! There's gonna be 17 more before this goes.
No, but is this the one that we can actually start talking about?
Yeah, you could talk about this one at last. It doesn't matter.
Okay, because the number of players that you said not to go with that you have in this, like Pedro Porro, Anderson, like Bruno, like I'm just confused.
No,
The math
it's
isn't
interesting.
mathing.
So what I would say with this draft is, I was also really high on Bruno, right? I don't love his opening fixture in Arsenal, City, or Chelsea.
I thought you were gonna stop, and before you said Bruno, and
No,
that's how you came to this draft.
so I don't love his opening fixtures, and I think if it's like what I'm probably gonna end up doing is if it ends up working out well, I'm just gonna get Bruno in later after this tough run is done. But this team subs out Verts, who I have concerns about just from a minutes and play style standpoint. It brings in Bruno, who I have no concerns about. It gets rid of Bowen and replaces him with another West Ham attacker. And it still has Pedro. I think my concerns though is that I have two 5.5 mil mids. So the pricing is just expensive this season.
The pricing is excellent. Like
I think they got
it's
it right.
really hard to make a team. Yeah.
I think they got it right this year. There's going to be 5.5 mil mids who we've never heard of who are going to take off. There's going to be teams that were pegging for 10th that are going to overperform like Forest last season. And so really, I'm just trying not to lose a lot of team value in the opening parts of the season and go for highly unpicked. Like I like going a little more template towards the beginning of the season, just so I'm not hemorrhaging team value. So critique this one. I can pull up the last draft as well. That was probably an example of Max planning, but those are kind of my thoughts.
Sharpe, do your worst.
No, I think your take on losing value after getting burned on it like last season is interesting because it's not something that I really took into consideration. I mean, shocking with my team and worrying about those 4.0s, just trying to get like I have a Esteve in there right now, which I know you have him in there right now too, but not going multiple there. And I truly thought your biggest problem, like jumping out, was more the midfield, which I hear you addressed it with words. I agree. Keeping him out is the right call, no matter where you land. I don't think he should be in a team at the beginning of the time, but still having those two 5.5s in there, I think it's scary to me. I like having a little more solidified, players in there that have proven themselves. But yeah, I understand your thought process. That's just the one area that I would still critique or look at.
Mm-hmm. No, I get it. I'm not happy with this draft. I think is the thing. This was like let's see if we can address some of the midfield concerns I have. See if we can get Bruno in there. See if we can get Bowen out. I'm not convinced it's better than my last draft though, and I have concerns about Reindeers and his starting minutes too.
Yeah.
Okay, starting at keeper. One thing, so I looked at Sanchez as well. I think a glaring problem with my draft is I don't have a Chelsea defender. I would love to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Sanchez is the easy one because especially now with Colwell out, who are you confident in starting outside of Cucurella there?
Who's 6.0? He's expensive, yeah.
Exactly. Only thing with Sanchez is, if you remember last year when they had European fixtures midweek, they'd be playing somebody like Southampton. I think I got burned by this actually, and he gets benched. Like he gets randomly benched, and they put in their backup in midweeks at times. I don't love the idea of having a keeper that I'm not 100% confident is going to start all the games. Only other thing to note is that today I saw that Donnarumma is leaving PSG and is hoping to come to the Prem. So I worry that he could get replaced in that sense as well. So that's my only thought on the Sanchez thing. I think you could arguably replace him with Sells or keep Sanchez. I think he's fine. For me personally, it's too much risk for me.
I agree with that completely. Sanchez is far and away probably the most popular goalkeeper in FPL discourse fashion. But I mean, he's a minutes risk. He's not that great of a keeper, in my opinion, period. So I think he's going to ship more goals than he should. Shout out Onana. And like, I'm not that convinced by him either. I just think that the goalie pricing has also risen this year. And so there's not a great 4.5. My general preference is to go really cheap at the goalkeeper, because what I did prior to this podcast is I just pulled up, let's look at the spread between the lowest scoring goalkeeper that a lot of people had in their team and like Raya, or Allison, who was obviously at the top, way more expensive. And it wasn't huge compared to the spread for like a midfielder. So I don't think that goalkeeper is like the most important position. I think you just need a starting keeper It's just that the pricing is hard right now.
Yeah. And then, I mean, yeah, you have obviously like the reason that you have 2 5.5 mids is because you've managed to squeeze in all of these premiums. And like, I think that's going to be nasty. I think there's a really good reason to go for that. But to the same point, like it's the balance of high end players versus reliable players. And somebody like Reindeer here worries me that he could easily not start week 1 at Wolves, and you wouldn't be surprised, right?
Oh
So
no.
then you're either relying on Diouf to come in against Sunderland, which actually doesn't sound too bad, or Strand Larson against City. So I think it's is there a good rotation between Reindeer, Anderson, and Strand Larson, or I guess with Diouf as well? Like, have you gone through that and feel like that's a good spot? Just because I wonder if how often he might not actually be reliable for you.
Yeah, no, the 2.5 mid is my biggest concern. I was really eyeing up Sar from Crystal Palace when I
Yeah.
had a 4.5 million mid in the midfield, and that was like perfect. It was a great spread of price ranges, which I really like. I just think the problem with that is that the Crystal Palace opening fixtures are terrible, which is kind of a bummer because I was also really high on Mateta. He's been on fire in preseason. It's just that I think I got to avoid those Palace options at all costs, and I don't have another 6.5 million mid that I'm as convinced about. Like Ndai, we've already discussed. Sar, those are the only two I was even really considering.
And
And
I think to be fair with Palace, you can, especially attacker wise, like you can take your time on them. Their first 3 fixtures are Chelsea, Forest, and Villa. So it's
yeah,
like I don't think there's a huge rush to get one of them in as long as you have an out to get there. So yeah, I
yeah.
think that's fine to not go with
So
them.
that's why I wanted to get Verts out of the team to try to maybe upgrade Reindeers to like a more expensive middle pick, but I just can't find anyone in that like 7.5 mil mid range. Like it was Rogers. Roger was the perfect pick. He was 7.0. I think he was going to do a ton of goals. Now he's injured, and now I'm kind of scrambling there.
Well,
So
and I think it's
agreed.
interesting that you're saying you tried to get rid of Wirtz and I'm trying to find someone else, but you went up to Bruno, who
But
early on you said you were like, I don't trust Man United. So I feel like I almost feel like you talked yourself into not getting Bruno. So I'm surprised to see him here.
like
What
I
was the
said,
thinking there?
this was just to see what getting him in my team would do to my
Could
team
look
because
like.
he's
Yeah.
so expensive. I
I did the
still
same thing.
think I still think I agree that he shouldn't be in your team because he's so expensive, combined with the fact that we don't know how they're going to be and that the fixtures are okay but not amazing. Like he's not staying on my team. I think I'm more likely to go back to Verts than I am keep Bruno
Yeah.
because even if I get rid of Bruno, I could upgrade Pedro Porro to a Van Dijk, Ball, get a more expensive attacker. I could go up to a premium keeper like a Raya. Is he 6 mil or is he 5.5? Like a 5.5 mil keeper.
He's 6, but yeah, just
Yeah. I could redrop like a Strand Larson and take him to a goo and then bring up, João Pedro, get that 7.5 mil striker. So there's a lot
yeah.
of options that Bruno Fernandes limits, and I'm not sure his pictures are good enough to convince me to do them. It's just that I have similar nervousness about Verts because he's just an unknown quantity.
Well, so that makes me think both of you guys have kind of talked about how you wouldn't really trust words. Like if you were to get rid of Fernandez to start, would you consider going Cody Gakpo?
Yes, very, very much so, because right now he's uncontested on the left wing.
Right.
Um, in fact, he's probably one of the Liverpool players that I think is the highest upside. It's just that if they get Isak, then that value plummets like instantly.
Right.
Like I go from very
Well,
high
not
on Gakpo to not
necessarily
at all.
though, because it's like bringing in Isak doesn't necessarily mean that he has competition at left wing. That's the thing
No,
that's interesting to me. Like
I
I
think
don't know if anyone understands exactly where that's going to shake out.
100% agree. My bigger concern is just slot roulette. Like with another bald fraud
Yeah.
rotating continuously, like even if he has to shoe in Ertz into left wing, I could see it. I just right now Gakpo has no rotation options basically at all, so I think he's guaranteed high minutes.
Yeah.
But if that changes and Isak comes in and they need to start moving good players to maybe bad positions for like a Sunderland game, then it's like, okay, Gakpo might not even start these easy games. They may put like a Birds out of position. Then I'm nervous.
Got it. Yeah. Well, I mean, I like it. I think it seems like you're very not confident in the draft though. Like it
Not at
seems
all.
like you're ready to rip this up at like a sneeze could rip this thing up for you.
I think that this one is like a 3 out of 10 confidence rating. My other one was maybe a 5 out of 10, but there's still some holes I'm not happy about right now.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna jump into mine. So let me talk to you guys about about Erling Haaland.
Feels like
Let
a
me
Shark
just
Tank.
Yeah, let me pitch Erling Haaland to you. All right. I kind of told you guys over text before we've gotten on here some of my thought process. So first of all, here's the general draft. I'll dive into it in a second. But the main thing here, right, is I have Haaland and no Salah. And let me give you the thought process. It comes down to captaincy more than anything. Initially, I was going to go Salah. My initial thought process was, okay, Haaland has something to prove, whereas Salah just had an incredible last season. Like, I have nothing to think about with him. Until Haaland proves that I should pay for him, I'm not going to. So I was fully on the Salah train. Here's what did me in was when I started looking at the fixtures, I went through and picked my top 3 captains each week. And granted, I think you could argue a lot of these differently, and there's probably some subject to change now, but the overarching idea is still true. I was really tempted to even go without Salah or Haaland for this reason, because I think if you went through the weeks of captaincy, you can really cover them off pretty well. So week 1, Salah against Bournemouth is genuinely probably the one I am the most worried about. Bournemouth defense has lost a lot of players. I'm very nervous about that. I think Liverpool could come out flying, and I could see myself taking a huge hit in week 1. So I'm genuinely worried about that. Both of you have shown Bowen in your drafts. I would really be considering him against Sunderland. I know that's probably a ballsy play, but I am a fixture manager, like through and through. Will take somebody who's playing Sunderland and captain them over Salah anytime. I love the upside of it. I love, the opportunity that it presents and what have you. I don't think there's anyone from Tottenham I'm confident enough to captain in week 1, but personally, if I had a free hit team in every week, that's how I was looking at this. I would captain Haaland over Wolves, or at Wolves over Salah over at Bournemouth. I think that one's really close in week 1. Don't get me wrong. I think Salah is going to be a great captaincy that week. Nothing wrong with that. Week 2, Salah goes to Newcastle. If you have Saka against Leeds, you're going to take him. If you have Haaland against Tottenham, you're going to take him. You might even take Palmer against West Ham. I would argue both of you will probably look in that week at captaining Palmer anyway, if you have both of them. Week 3, he's got Arsenal. Haaland's got Brighton. Palmer's got Fulham. Newcastle play Leeds. Like there are a few other options, but I really think that Haaland is the best captaincy in week 3. Week 4, obviously Salah is the best. They're playing Burnley. It's going to be an easy fixture, but I'm planning on free hitting, right? So under the Haaland strategy, that's the one chip that I'm really pretty certain in is locking into that free hit in week 4. And just so that I don't miss out on those solid points and those Liverpool points. It also allows me to get some more data as to figure out who are the Liverpool picks, who are the guys that I should be going with, and I can pick them for that 1 week. You keep going down, it looks like in 5 you're going to be going Watkins. I've seen some people saying that like Salah against Everton, you should be going there. Personally, again, a fixture manager, I'm going to take Watkins over to take on Salah every time there. And in week 6, you have Haaland against Burnley. And Salah against Crystal Palace. I think that's also leans toward Haaland. So that's the first 6. You can keep going here. And point being, after this point, you really start to see, at that point, it becomes more of like Saka, Palmer, Watkins. Those are the guys with really good fixtures from after game week 6. But in the first 6 game weeks, that's when I probably intend to have Haaland. I'll likely sell him at some point shortly after that. And I think I will probably at that point be going some sort of no premium draft. But I'm committed to not having Salah for the first 12 game weeks. The first 6 to me, I just don't see. I see enough upside to take him on that I think it makes sense from a captaincy perspective.
I'm paying attention intently because I am trying to have you convince me to bring Haaland in because I want to do it. And I just know the rules of FPL. You got to have Salah. And so, but I want to do it. Like, I
think that's fair. You guys humbled me with telling me that this is where it comes in that I am a newbie, right? I've been playing this for 2 years. I didn't know how good Salah's been in FPL for so long. So maybe I'm making a stupid decision. You know what I mean?
I think it is worth reiterating. What did you finish last season?
I was like 3,600. So I had a very nice season, but it was also because I went for Salah. You know what I mean? I went from Salah from the jump. So that's worth saying as well.
If you're gonna have one stat, it better have power behind it. So I'm glad it's doing a little convincing. I think, as Mack was intently paying attention, I was learning, but I also think
You were
it's gonna.
dissociating. Yeah.
It was gonna no, it's just gonna make it really sweet when I captain the right person ahead of you in any game week
Okay,
now.
but genuinely, let me ask you guys: in weeks 2, 3, and 5, who are you captaining?
So I am looking at that Chelsea Palmer captainship into, like you said.
Yep, I think that's totally fair. But I can also go there. I also am going to have Palmer in my draft, so I
And
can cover that off, or I can captain Holland against Tottenham if they look like shit.
that's a high upside pick. I like it. I do like that Arsenal versus Leeds picture, but I really don't see myself having any Arsenal until like game week 8, unless Gokras comes out like
I,
in banging
I,
form.
s-
But then, yeah, largely I agree that I think Holland's got pretty great fixtures and Palmer can cover the other two versus the Salah fixtures. I also have like a little bit of concern about like, is Salah going to get as many goals because of the dearth of attacking options in Liverpool now? So I agree, is what I'm saying. I am there's a 50% chance
You're tempted. You're
with my weak
tempted.
draft, I rip it up and put Holland in anyways.
All right, Sharpe, talk to me.
no, I think. Okay, I guess my question for you actually is the main thing that came out of my looking at this. Free hit game week 4. Any world in which Salah comes out insane. I mean, he proves it against Newcastle. He does it again against Arsenal, and that becomes a wild card instead of a free hit.
No, but I hear you. Like, oh boy, that'd be really tough if he knocks it home against both of them. That would be really tough. But no, I mean at that point I have Holland against Burnley in 6, and I think that's just enough of an upside. Because then I'm going to say, okay, fuck, this sucks. But all right, I can cover off Salah at least for one of these weeks, and then he has okay fixtures. I have, Ollie Watkins, who I'm going to captain in 5 regardless, and then I can get Holland in 6 when nobody has him or less people have him. So I'm committed to this I'm committed to Holland for the first 6 weeks. I'm committed to no Salah. I said for the first 12, but you're right. If he was absolutely smashing it, I would have to make a change. Um, but I hear you on that. I think it's also worth thinking about like higher level when we're talking about the chips. An early free hit really could be a play. Not even just, I'm not trying to pitch that as like a Holland guy, but looking at Arsenal versus Leeds in week 2, you're going to have no Arsenal. And that's like
Oh.
a pretty prime opportunity. Similarly, if Man United is looking really solid, they're playing Burnley in week 3. Like I think in this early stretch when we don't have double game weeks, it's looking for players that you're not going to have because their surrounding fixtures suck, but they have one really good one. So I think a lot of people who are in your guys' camp are going to do a free hit City against Burnley in 6. And I think all of those are totally fine strategies. But I just realized like with the free hit being this early, it allows me to cover off the worst fixture for Salah. And then the rest of them, I'm like looking at them and I'm like, I'm not I'm not dying over any of those. I'm not tweaking that hard, especially once you get into these later ones here where suddenly you're going to want to have Arsenal, West Ham, Fulham, Crystal Palace, Burnley, and then you have uh, after the next couple after this 11 and 12, it's Palmer captaincy all the way. So, there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts, but like when I'm looking through this, that was my temptation, and that's why we ended up here.
No,
Other
I
other
actually,
things I want to say that like lend to your argument is that Holland is cheaper, so you can afford
Right.
more team value, and you can still cover Liverpool assets with Gertz or with Gakpo. So that's one of the other reasons I'm considering it.
And I did really look at a no premium, like neither. And I
Mm-hmm.
really thought about that for a while because it gives you so much flexibility. You can have Saka, you can have Bruno, you can have Palmer, you can have Watkins, you can have all of them. You can have every toy that you want, and you can captain each of them in every week. And so there's really nothing you have to worry about. You pick one free hit, and then the rest of the time you cover off with those guys. Like, I think it's still a viable strategy in that sense as well. But I'm saying all this, and then Salah's going to score a hat trick in the first week and braces in 2 and 3, and I'm going to be like, cool, fuck me. Yeah, brutal.
and he's gonna assist on the other two that are scored each of those weeks.
Exactly. So, okay, let
No,
me talk
I
through this
think
really quickly. Or yeah,
I
go
would
ahead.
say one, I just appreciate that thought process on the free hit early. I think that's making me think about some things. I think I'm gonna have a little fun after this, looking at how I can get Saka in there, just to see how it pans out.
No, I really like. I'll show you guys my no premium one as well. I don't think I'm going to go that way. I've convinced myself. Ultimately the reason I didn't go no premium was I'm looking again at these fixtures and looking at Holland and going, boy, I might be able to go no Salah, but no Holland too is like between the two of these, it just feels like there are too many moments where they're going to crush it, where they're going to smash it. So I need to pick one or the other. All right, so jumping into the draft really quick. Um, I do have a 4.5 in goal. I know you guys were talking about the 5.0s. The
We're
reason
bugging.
there was, yeah, it was just kind of the thought process that you had, Mac, of like, it kind of reminds me of a kicker in fantasy football where I'm like, it just doesn't matter. Sure, you can get Justin Tucker, but it just doesn't matter. You're fine playing the same guy. It's a low variance position, and I'd rather the money go somewhere else.
Don't say that to Mr. Little, who just did a 70-yarder in the preseason.
Does he also do sexual assault, or is that just those are
No,
independent things?
He also does not have MAGA speeches or whatever Butker had when he went and talked. So yeah.
So yeah, I went Verbruggen and net. That really was just to be able to afford other players, to be honest. But I was, even if I did have an extra 0.5 to go up to the 5, because I'm not convinced in Sanchez and because I already have triple Forest, I wouldn't probably go up to that. I would probably just upgrade Dubravka to like a Flecken, and then Flecken and Verbruggen rotate really nicely. So I'm comfortable with that. Up until very recently, until I watched the Community Shield game, I had Van Dijk in here for the reasons that I said to you guys about just like the change in Liverpool's defense, as well as me realizing I needed some portion of the Liverpool attack. I got rid of him. So I have Gabriel, Murillo, and Van de Ven. Van de Ven I'm not happy about, but similar to what you said at the beginning, Mac, I'm going to rotate him and Richards from Crystal Palace.
I love the rotation.
Yeah, so it really is more so that I wanted Richards in. I wanted a somewhat decent defense, but they have pretty brutal fixtures to start. So this rotates really nicely, actually. But the problem with the rotation, obviously, is if one of them gets injured, suddenly I'm playing Van de Ven against City and I'm fucked. In midfield, so I do have Palmer. I do have Wirtz. And the reason for getting Wirtz was I felt like I needed some portion of Liverpool attack. Like going no Salah is fine, but going no Liverpool attack felt like I'm really asking for it. The reason I like Wirtz is it seems like for everything I've heard is that they paid so much for him that they're going to trust him. They want him to be good. They want him to play all the time. So I think his minutes are relatively secure. And he just seems, he's so central that I think he could just be kind of an assist monster and get the odd goal when Salah passes it into him. So I don't expect him to, match Salah or anything crazy like that, but I think he will be a consistent attacking asset that I'm comfortable with. Anderson, just a 5.5 reliable, wanted somebody who I could plug and play every week in my lineup. And with DEFCONs, the nice thing is even when he's playing somebody like Arsenal, I don't have to worry because you actually have a better chance of getting DEFCONs generally when you're playing against like when you're parking the bus, which is Forrest's middle name. So I'm very comfortable with that. The player I probably dislike the most in my midfield is Matoma. He's just not exciting to me. The problem is I don't like anyone else at 6.5. So this is why when you're sitting there Sharpe with Ndai and I'm saying I don't like Ndai, I don't really like Matoma either. I'm just looking for a player here who's going to be super reliable and like super consistent that I can just put in every week. I don't necessarily think Matoma gets that, but at least he is one of their best players. They're going to play him as much as they possibly can. So I'm interested in that. The other mid I have is a 5.5 Arias from Wolves. Just kind of a high upside guy. He's taking set pieces. He's potentially going to slip into that Cunha role in Wolves. He's not going to be Cunha, but he might be able to take on some of the attack. So I wanted someone with a little bit of upside that I could rotate in from time to time. Up front, I did look when I was looking at going with Bruno. I did look at going with Gui or Gu or however the hell you say his name, but I just hate having a dead spot. Like I already have Dubravka and Esteve here who are already going to be kind of dead spots. Like I'm very rarely, if ever, going to play them. But that's just to be able to afford like a playable team. Having a forward that I can't play or an attacker that I can't play, I just don't like it for the reason of not being able to deal with injuries and stuff like that. So I have Watkins, Holland, and Chris Wood. Let me sell you on Chris Wood. Okay, let me show you guys something. So the way I've been looking at the fixture ticker, because I know I'm free hitting in 4, is I take out week 4. Look at these attacking fixtures for Forest. Like that is just beautiful. The first 6 are incredible. Brentford, Crystal Palace, West Ham, Burnley, Sunderland. Now, does the fact that they haven't scored a single goal in preseason worry me? Absolutely. But I just can't stop looking at those fixtures and saying, I know Chris Wood is going to score in at least 2 of those, like at least. And so he's not a long-term pick. And as soon as we get to game week 7 is when I hope to abandon all of my Forest assets. Not all of, I'll probably keep Anderson, but like definitely getting rid of Chris Wood in week 7. So my tentative plan from that perspective is just to roll as much as I can for in the first 6 game weeks. And then in week 7, get rid of Holland and revamp the team, like make it a no premium draft and really spread the money. So yeah, like I said, I have the cheap guys, Esteve and Dubravka, but that That's the most recent draft. I'm relatively set. Like I said, the Matoma pick I don't love, so I'm thinking about Tielemans. Funny enough, and the reason is he's just super consistent for DefCons. He's not exciting. He's not sexy, but he's 6.0, so I could put him in for Matoma. He's going to play really consistently. He gets DefCons, and then I could put that extra 500,000 into something else. I could get
Go up to Fulkrug.
Yeah, sure, exactly. Like I could. Well, no, Fulkrug is a forward, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. I read Arias as a midfielder.
Oh, no, you're good. But like, I mean, yeah, I could get a different 6.0 mid. I could up Dubravka to Flecken. I could up Verbruggen to a 5.0 keeper. I could up Van de Ven, anybody. I could put 5.5 million would do some work. So I am tempted to do that, but I also I hate the idea of having two players in my starting lineup who are not like you said about Anderson. He's not somebody who's attacking. I'm completely relying on him for DEFCONs. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the dilemma now, but I'm like getting pretty locked in. Obviously there's still so much that can happen. To your point, the first whistle is going to go and this whole thing is going to go to shit, but I'm feeling like a lot more comfortable. I was about to rip it up last night for Bruno and then I calmed down.
So
yeah, go ahead and roast it. Let's see
yeah,
it.
I don't even think I'm going to roast it necessarily. This is probably my favorite draft that I've seen. I think for Verbuggin, as Sharpe calls him, is probably one of the main
Verbuggy
weaknesses.
bug.
For Buggy. I mean, I'm not convinced by Matoma, so I think that getting Matoma out for a more expensive goalkeeper is probably worth it. If you want to go straight swap so I can die and bring Verbuggin up to a 5-5, I get that, but I agree with your logic on goalkeepers being like kickers and just not that important in the grand scheme of things. That's absolutely my attitude as well.
It would have to be Tielemans and die or someone at 6, but I
Yeah.
mean literally it's 3 players. Like that's the brutal part. 6 is such a weird. No, it's 2 players. Fuck,
the only player I liked in that bracket at all was Sarr, and his fixtures are just so bad that
But he's also 6.5. That's what I'm saying. Like 6.0 is like devoid of assets. Like it's tough.
Yeah. Well, I just think that there's a jump from like 7. There's not a great until you get to like 5.5 where we got like 3 top players. And I think that little 6.5 range is just empty. And that's the same problem I'm having in my team, which is why I have 2 5.5s in there right now, which I'm also not happy about.
I mean, that's the other option though. I go down to a 5.5. The problem then is I'm looking at rotating 3 5.5s, which is just
it's not a recipe for success. Yeah. No. I mean, I think that the pricing's good this season because it's forcing us to have these conversations. Last year, I felt like everyone had too many good options. But
you know what it lends itself to? You know what it lends it to, Sharpe? Big at the back. I could just take all this out, right? Bring this down to a 5.5 and then put 1 million more in my defense. And suddenly it's like, yeah, you play 4 at the back pretty consistently. It's not really a problem if they're good.
I mean, even if you just straight swap like Van de Ven to like
to a 5.5
or someone else, you have Richard as a rotation when you need it, and all of a sudden it's like you just might never actually need that. It's just then you're playing like a 4-4-2, 4-4. That's probably not good math. It was 10 players. But you're playing like a 4-4-2. It's like I generally prefer to play like a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2 where possible.
But truthfully, Mac, like that's all coming in pre-DEFCON. Like DEFCON might genuinely shake it up to the point where it's like 4-4-2 is the desired.
I know, and as a data person, it's killing me that we don't know. Like I've seen all these charts about like massive swings on players, and I spent the first half of the pod saying like I don't think they're that important. But like they very well could be quite quickly. So other than that, though, I love the draft. I think Wood is an interesting pick. It's funny that you pulled up the fixture tracker and Chelsea was like 1 above, and they have the same priced like forward. But I think that Wood is way more secure for minutes than João Pedro, and I have concerns just about is João Pedro going to translate it to the real season versus preseason?
No, but I actually agree with you, and I'm very tempted to just go there off the bat. It's the fixture, it's the minutes, it's the like known penalties with Wood, it's just the known quantity more so. But even to that point, early on when I had Colwill in my draft for a while, and I was like thinking about just like what if I went Colwill and Sanchez, and the reason I wasn't doing it was because I kept being like I might have to get João Pedro in like week 3. Like if he starts crushing it, I might have to get him off the bat. I like I said, I like Nottingham Forest's fixtures for the first 6 too much to not go there, but I'd be hard pressed not to go. I love João Pedro. Like I fucking love that guy. Just like from a watching perspective, Yeah. So I could see that too.
Yeah, I also just have concerns about like, I mean, I don't really have a lot of concerns about Chelsea. I have concerns about Forest's attacking ability this season. Like it's so far they just haven't looked on. And like that's the thing is
100%.
like
Me too.
it's like preseason. It doesn't matter realistically, right? Like they're figuring things out, they're trying things. So maybe Nuno's just saying like, let's do a tactic, swap it up when the first game comes, and Wood is right out of the gate. And it's like as long as Chris Wood doesn't lose too much team value, you can just make that 1-to-1 swap
Yeah.
between Wood and
Yep.
Pedro. So I don't think it's like a bad pick because he has good fixtures.
Yeah. Sharpenator.
There's a couple guys who have some bad vibes.
Okay, talk to me about the bad vibes. I'm very open to Vibes FC.
Vibes FC does not like your midfield at all. And I shouldn't say all. Obviously, I like Palmer. But
I
after
think that's
that,
fair though.
coming from, especially I think looking at a Salah midfield where it's automatically bumped up and my front looks worse without Holland, it feels so weak. Like it feels like there's not going to be a lot that comes out of that. And so I would really look at getting a combination of Wirtz out of there and upgrading one of those guys if you can, or upgrading your back line like you kind of already touched on. I get bad vibes from Wood as well. I wouldn't have him in
Yeah.
there, which would then be another area you could use to upgrade the parts that
Yep.
I'm talking about. And
Okay,
then I agree
but
with you guys looking at goalies, but sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say I feel like this is gonna be you choosing between your children, but you think Wirtz has really bad vibes, so I feel like that's fair.
Yeah.
Remove him. But if I remove him, I have no Liverpool attack. So how that's the only like should I
Yeah.
get Gakpo in? Like is that where I should be
Yeah,
going?
is Gakpo 7.5? Because if
He
you
is.
could get Gakpo out and gain 1 million, you might be able to all of a sudden make like Matoma a great
Wholesale
pick as
changes.
well.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Wait, play with it. See, what do we.
yeah, like
Yeah.
what
I
do we?
mean, so if I don't the problem is I don't love any of the other 7.5 picks, but
I
yes, I can do
agree.
it.
Rogers like punched a hole through all of my drafts when he got injured. He was the perfect player
I
for
mean,
like
but
this
he still
mid
could
price
be
range.
okay, right? So okay, like yeah, let's say I do that. Let's say I do Rogers here.
I mean, then you could upgrade your goalkeeper as well.
I mean, I still only have 0.5 there. But I mean, the other one to your guys' point is like, let's say I get rid of Wood. My problem is I'm not comfortable going any cheaper than 6.5 at forwards. It would be either Welbeck or Strand Larson for me. So I'll say Welbeck for now, but I mean, we can make arguments about that, but I'll say Welbeck for now. I have 1.5 then. Like, I do agree with you guys. This allows me a lot more flexibility. And in terms of, I certainly prefer Rogers to Matoma. Like, I'm very in on that one. I just, my vibes FC is not high on Gakpo. I just
Yeah,
worry.
I'm not gonna vouch for Gakpo either. I think if you don't have Salah, you should stay out of the attack, which I know is probably stupid
Wow.
overall, but I
No,
don't
I don't
think
necessarily think that's stupid. I'm just shocked to hear you say that.
I don't think either of those guys are gonna be consistent point getters. I mean, there's too much going on. There's too many mouths to feed, I think, at this point, that the only one I can trust is the guy that's proven it year every year.
Right.
So for other than him, I'm out on it. So then I think you get rid of Gakpo. You said you have 1.5 still left. What does that
No,
play
it's
with?
I have 1.5 right now with Gakpo
can
in.
you go up
I
to
know, but
Bruno?
I'm saying get
Try
rid of
Bruno.
Oh, just
Gakpo.
get Bruno instead. Fuck.
What if you went like Bruno and Strand Larson? Like, okay, so just to be clear, before you knock in Bruno, my vibes FC was not high on those edits either. So I completely agree with you there, Luke. I also
No,
think
but I
Welbeck.
like the idea of Bruno. Like, I don't know.
I
Fuck.
think Welbeck's going to be a terrible pick. But what if you put in like Strand Larson
I like
Yeah.
Strand
instead?
Larson a lot more too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm okay with that. I just then I have two Wolves attackers, but
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
sure,
yeah,
Strand Larson.
I get it and I agree. It's like
I
Listen,
could put reindeer in here. It's not a big
I
deal.
was gonna say you can fix the 5.5
Yeah,
mid.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not worried about that.
it's tough. I don't know. I like what a
I see
Holland
what you're
draft
saying though.
gives
I mean,
you.
like this midfield is so much stronger. Like Rogers, Palmer, and Fernandez. Those are three players I'm never worried about. Like I like the upside of Wirtz. I like having a Liverpool attack. It makes me feel more comfortable about my choice. Because like, yeah. Sharp, what you're saying is I just need to go Salah. Like that's really the
I'm
vibes FC.
saying, yeah. I mean, I'm saying you go Salah or you stay out, and that can be my thing that's on tape here. And in 3 weeks, I could look like a moron. But
So
I think
I think
yeah.
the other point to add too is that Salah is like the key midfield option, and we've discussed more times in these draft like conversations that there's a sort of lack of mid-priced midfielders, but I don't think there's like a lack of productive forwards. So if I think of the gaps that I'm trying to fill,
Yeah.
um, that's just a thing for Salah because it just takes up a space. I don't know if that made any sense.
No, I know what you're saying. Like,
It's
point
just
being,
like,
you should take a couple of cheaper forwards and upgrade your cheap
I
mids.
don't think it's like you should do anything, but I'm just saying that, like, if you want to drop down to Strand Larson, you
Right.
reasonably can. Or if you want to go from a Bowen, you can drop down to like a Pedro. And if you don't want to go to the Pedro, then you go to Strand Larson. We've discussed a couple of times how if you go to Verts, because Rogers is injured, there's like nobody
Yeah,
underneath. So, it is a tough point that, Salah just kind of makes your midfield a lot stronger. But
because you have one less spot to worry about.
yeah,
Yeah,
because you can
very
compensate
true.
in the striker position more. That was probably what I was trying to get to.
Yeah, very true.
You know what I think could be super interesting if you're not on Bruno? I mean, you can almost get up to Saka without too much of a problem.
Yeah, you get
You need what, a mil?
a
A mil
mill.
is hard though. Where are you gonna get a mil from? Like, give it.
I mean, you could get rid
I'm
of
gonna take
Rogers.
Strand Larson down to what's it, Fulkrig? Isn't he 6?
Oh,
Oh,
you're
that
right. He
could
is
be
6.
huge.
He is
So
6.
there's and
Yeah,
Yeah.
then I think you take Roger. I know we don't like any of the 6.5s. We've talked about that, but I like Saka. I like
Yeah, I
Saka a
mean,
whole lot to make up for that little
I
I
tiff.
mean,
just am so
not
concerned about
not
the
that I want
fixtures.
Matoma, but boom, you put this back and you're there.
Yeah.
Fuck.
I have just I'm the problem that I'm with this draft right now is that I just, because the Arsenal fixtures are so
Yeah.
hard
Yeah,
in
they're
like
tough.
They are.
3 to 6, like,
I think if you do this, you're free hit. You already have 4 locked in.
so
If you
No, no,
but
no.
but if you go Salah in this, that free hit in game week 3 is I know I understand, but now I'm thinking for me how I can get Saka in. I would free hit on 3, get
It'd
a
be
different
2. It'd be
team.
2. But yes, yes, you free hit 2. It's
Yeah,
money. That's when
whatever.
they play leads.
No. I'm bringing Saka in with Salah, and then when they play each other in 3, I'm free hitting so that I don't have to have them
Oh.
play each other.
Oh. Okay, Sharp. I see you cooking. All right,
yeah,
chef.
I
Yes,
dig it. I
chef.
dig the thought process. Um,
Vibes.
All right. Well, I feel like we've spent enough time on looking at these drafts, but
yeah.
fuck, I was so locked in. Why did I even talk to you guys? Damn it. Now you got me reconsidering everything.
I have been
Um,
convinced of like 15 different strategies over the course of this video.
yeah, this is I was hoping that this was going to provide me with a lot of clarity, and now I just feel that much more like fuck, maybe I should get Bruno Fernandez. Damn it. All right, well, thank you guys for chatting. Yeah, these were 3 winks talking about their FPL. Guys, got anything you wanna say on the way out?
Can't wait to get back together and talk about how wrong we were after week 1.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
dude,
mean,
the week 1 sobering is gonna be fucking brutal.
Overreaction Tuesday is about to hit real hard.
Oh god, yeah.
every season I say that I'm not going to stress about preseason, and every season I do. I'd like to just put my mental state in comparison. I'm closing on a house within a week, and I'm more stressed about FPL. So
Yeah, that's tough.
we'll see what the season holds, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah, hell yeah. Well, all right, this has been 3 winks. Thank you guys. Catch you next
Peace.
time.